He stood at the altar, heart pounding, about to marry someone whose face he had never seen. Not a single soul in the galaxy had dared this before. Not the boldest warriors, not the wisest diplomats. But one human commander, Derek Steele, looked beyond the veil. And what he uncovered didn't just change his life. It shook the foundations of two entire civilizations. If you think this is just another love story, think again. This is how one man's faith sparked a galactic revolution. The grand ceremonial hall of the Stellar Diplomatic Corps was packed with dignitaries, soldiers, scholars, and skeptics. Two species stood separated by culture, history, and fear. On one side were the humans, uniformed, upright, silent. On the other side were the Etherians, tall, glowing, their flowing robes flickering like living silk. At the center, between the two worlds, stood Commander Derek Steele in full military dress. Strong-jawed, bearded, calm on the outside, boiling. Inside, everyone whispered. No one truly believed he would go through with it. The idea itself had sounded insane when the proposal first appeared, marriage between a human commander and an Etherian princess. A royal veiled since birth, her face hidden even from her own court. Rumors said she was deformed. Some claimed she had no face at all. Others whispered about ancient curses, failed genetics, or mind control tricks. But Derek didn't listen to the noise. He had read her messages. He had seen the way she challenged him in debate, teased him with dry wit, and asked him questions no other alien dared to ask a human. Their entire courtship had taken place behind digital walls and diplomatic protocol. He knew her heart, even if he had never seen her face. And now here he stood, heart thundering like war drums, about to say vows with a woman he barely knew, and yet somehow understood better than anyone. "You're sure about this?" whispered Admiral Richardson beside him, voice low, eyes hard. Derek didn't hesitate. "If I back out now, humanity looks weak, afraid, and that's not who we are." The ceremony began. Etherian music, light, strange, beautiful, filled the hall. Human instruments followed, grounding it in something familiar. They spoke their vows in both tongues. Derek's voice was firm but kind. When it was her turn, Princess Letha's voice floated like silver wind, soft, musical, layered with emotion. And then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, the unveiling. Silence fell. Even the background hum of starship engines seemed to vanish. Slowly, she raised her hands to her veil. The material shifted, like liquid glass, parting inch by inch. Derek held his breath. Everyone did. And then he saw her. Her skin shimmered like pale silver, glowing gently as if lit from within. Her eyes were large and violet, deep as starlight, filled with quiet mischief. Her hair, white as snow, fell in soft waves across her shoulders, catching light like crystal. She was beautiful, yes, but not in any human way. She was strange, alien, and utterly breathtaking. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Still holding his breath, Derek stared into her eyes. Then she smiled. "Were you expecting tentacles?" she asked playfully. He laughed, the tension cracking like ice. "Honestly, I was betting on scales. Lost 20 credits to the Admiral." Letha's laughter rang like chimes. The mood shifted in an instant. Walls dropped. The impossible no longer seemed insane. It was just real. Two people, a connection, a choice. The ceremony continued, but Derek's mind stayed fixed on her, on how steady her hands had been when removing her veil, and yet how her fingers had trembled slightly during the ring exchange. She had been just as afraid as he was. But they had done it, together. Later at the diplomatic reception, he found her by a quiet corner. The buzz of politics and curiosity faded as she sipped from a glass of shimmering blue liquid. "You're the first person outside my family who didn't flinch when I removed the veil," she said softly. "Why would I flinch?" Derek replied, genuinely puzzled. "You're remarkable." She tilted her head, studying him. "Most species find our light unsettling. That's why we created the veils. But you humans, you're drawn to light, aren't You? It's kind of our thing, he said. We see something new, we run straight at it. Sometimes it works out, and sometimes it explodes, she added with a small smile. He grinned. That too, but we still run toward it. A silence grew between them, not awkward but full of things not yet said. There are things you need to know, Derek, she whispered. Things that could... The sound of breaking glass cut her off. They turned. Counselor Thi, the Etherean diplomat who had scowled through the entire ceremony, lay on the floor. His staff had rolled away. Under his robes, a glimpse of something metallic, definitely not ceremonial. Derek's eyes narrowed. Well, he muttered, hand reaching instinctively toward the sidearm he wasn't allowed to carry here. That's not suspicious at all. He looked at Letha. She met his gaze. For the first time, Derek felt the edge of something deeper than diplomacy. This wasn't just about love or peace anymore. Something was coming, and it had already begun. Derek didn't say anything as the guards rushed to help Counselor Thi from the floor. But his eyes never left the man's form. Beneath the traditional robes, a glint of dark alloy, a compact weapon, a data spike. He couldn't tell, but he knew danger when he saw it. Letha noticed too. Her skin pulsed slightly, a soft ripple of alarm only an Etherean could emit. She leaned in close to Derek, her voice barely audible beneath the noise of murmuring guests. That wasn't an accident, she whispered. Derek gave the smallest of nods. You think he's trying to sabotage the wedding? No, the wedding's over. If he wanted to stop it, he would have made his move before the vows. Whatever he's planning, and it's something else. He looked around the chamber, noting the unease spreading like a virus. Human and Etherean guards exchanged glances. The older Ethereans kept their distance. Some whispered behind their fans. Others openly stared at the new couple, as if trying to decide whether to fear them or worship them. Letha seemed to shrink a little under all those eyes. Derek reached for her hand. Hey, he said gently. You're not alone in this. She looked up at him, her glow flickering with surprise. No human had ever touched her in public like this, let alone during a political event surrounded by alien nobility. My people don't do this, she said, voice low. Your people need to start, he replied, and maybe they just need someone brave enough to lead the way. She held his gaze for a moment. Then she gave a small nod and let her fingers tighten around his. Later that night, in the royal quarters of the diplomatic vessel Star Sovereign, the mood was quieter. But the tension hadn't gone away. Their suite was a strange mix of earth steel and Etherean crystal. Human furniture rested beneath glowing panels of soft starlight. The floor hummed faintly under Derek's boots, reacting to the Etherean tech in his clothing. Letha stood by the window gazing out at the stars. Her veil was gone. Her long white hair spilled over her shoulders like liquid snow, and her skin shimmered softly with color, violet, blue, silver, changing with her thoughts. You're still watching me, she said without turning. Of course I am, Derek answered, setting down his data tablet. You're my wife now, I'm allowed to stare. She laughed. It wasn't formal like before, it was real, warm, tired. You're strange, Derek Steele. I'm human. It's our thing. She turned to him fully, her eyes glowing in the low light. Your heart rate increases every time I face you directly. He blinked. You can feel that? I can read it through our connection. Ever since the bonding ceremony, our biologies have been syncing. That's not terrifying at all, he joked, though his mind raced. A biochemical link between species. That wasn't marriage. That was evolution. She stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the soft floor. You're not afraid? He looked into her eyes. Of you? No. Of the future we just started? Maybe. But I've always liked the unknown. Their hands met again, naturally this time. No ceremony, no audience. I've studied human relationships. she said softly, tracing his beard with her glowing fingers. Your kind needs physical contact, emotional reassurance. And this? She paused, placing a hand over her own chest. This is new for me, too. He wrapped an arm around her waist, feeling her body tense and then relax against him. Then we learn together, he said. The closeness between them was no longer about politics, no longer about treaties or appearances. It was quiet and fragile and real. The air between them buzzed with something deeper than attraction. It was connection, raw and sudden. Their kiss was hesitant, experimental. Her lips felt electric, not in a metaphorical sense, literally. A soft pulse ran from her skin into his, making his heart skip. When they parted, her skin had brightened. That was unexpected, she breathed. Good or bad? Very good. Her smile lit the room. They talked for hours after that, about Earth, about the stars, about the loneliness of leadership and the things they both had lost along the way. Derek found himself opening up in a way he never had, not even with his closest squad mates. Letha didn't speak much of her past, but her eyes said more than her words. Finally, as they lay side by side in their shared bed, Derek turned to her. You were going to tell me something earlier. Before Counselor Thieth dropped his little surprise. Her glow dimmed. Yes, there's something you need to know. He sat up slowly. She hesitated, then said, Etherians have been hiding more than just our faces. For generations we've been failing. Biologically. Our birth rates are falling. Our genetics are stagnating. The veils weren't just cultural, they hide the signs of decline. Derek was silent. Our scientists have tried everything, but no solution worked. Until now. What changed? She looked at him, her voice quiet. You. He stared. Me? Our bond. Our compatibility. It's not just rare, it's impossible. And yet here we are. There was another pause. Her next words changed everything. I think I'm pregnant, Derek. His breath caught. Through their link, he could feel the flicker of something new. A presence, faint but real. That fast? He whispered. She gave a tired smile. Etherian biology adapts quickly when it finds a match, and apparently, we found one. He didn't speak for several seconds, then finally, slowly, a grin spread across his face. Well, he said, pulling her into his arms. I guess this honeymoon just got a little more historic. She laughed against his chest. You humans always say the strangest things. And you glow every time you laugh. I think we're even. Outside, the stars continued to move. But inside, something new had begun to rise. Something brighter than fear, stronger than politics. Hope. The morning after their world shifted, Derek Steele awoke to a light he'd never seen before. Not sunlight, not artificial glow from a cabin fixture. This light was alive. It moved, it breathed, and it came from the woman lying next to him, his wife, his mystery, his partner in something far bigger than a marriage. Letha's skin pulsed with a soft rhythm, like a heartbeat made of stars. She wasn't just glowing, she was changing. He sat up slowly, trying not to wake her. But her eyes opened instantly, violet and sharp, like she had been listening to his heartbeat even in sleep. You don't have to stare every time I glow, she murmured, voice low, teasing. I really do, Derek said with a tired grin. She smiled, but the smile faded quickly, replaced by something more serious. Her fingers went to her stomach. It's still early, she said softly. But I can already feel something. Derek didn't need to ask. Through their bond, he could sense it too, like a candle had been lit in a vast dark room. Small, fragile, but undeniably present. So, he said, half joking, we're expecting a tiny supernova? Letha gave him a look. Don't joke. This changes everything. He sobered. I know. She sat up, wrapping herself in a glowing robe that formed from strands of light around her body. If what happened between us spreads, if it becomes public, there will be panic, jealousy, worship, fear, hope, all at once. We can handle that, Derek said. We've already handled worse. Counselor Thiaf doesn't think so, she added darkly. He's not just angry about our marriage. He's scared, and people like him don't back down, they strike harder. As if summoned by her words, the room's light dimmed for a second. A vibration passed through the walls, soft, subtle, but wrong. Derek shot to his feet instantly. That's not normal engine hum, he said. Letha moved toward the wall console, her fingers sweeping across the display. We're off course. What? Our trajectory to the Etherian capital was pre-programmed. Locked. No one was supposed to touch it. Derek grabbed his comms device. Nothing. Static. Jammed, he muttered. Of course it is. Letha's eyes were glowing brighter now, focused. Only a member of the royal family or high council could override those controls. You thinking what I'm thinking? Counselor Thief. Derek grabbed his boots and jacket, sliding his sidearm into the holster even though they were technically still in a diplomatic zone. Someone hijacked our honeymoon, he muttered. And probably wants to hijack our child too, Letha added, her voice colder now. As they headed for the door, she stopped him with a hand on his chest. There's more, she said, about our bond. You need to understand it fully before we go into danger. He paused. I'm listening. When Etherians form intimate links, it's not just emotional, it's biological. My body doesn't just recognize you, it syncs with you, which means if you're injured, I'll feel it. If you die, hey, Derek interrupted, grabbing both her hands. We're not going to test that. She looked down. It also means I can find you, anywhere in the galaxy. Your emotions, your vitals, and they're like a beacon to me now. Derek blinked, absorbing that. Okay, so I'm basically your favorite radio station. She gave him a half smile, more like a second heartbeat. Romantic and terrifying, he muttered, stepping through the door. Let's go take our ship back. They moved through the corridors of the Star Sovereign quickly, quietly. Letha's presence beside him made it easier to navigate the unfamiliar Etherian layouts. Her bare feet made no sound. Her glow dimmed as they passed through darker sections, camouflaging them like a living stealth system. I can sense him, she whispered. Bridge level, he's not alone. Derek nodded. How many? 12. Armed. Tense. Of course they are. They reached a security checkpoint. 2 Etherian guards stood in front, weapons at their sides. Letha stepped forward, her voice smooth and commanding. Stand aside. They hesitated. One looked nervous. Our orders come from Counselor Thief, Princess. I outrank him. Yes, but she's carrying a royal heir, Derek cut in sharply. You really want to explain to your superiors how you let harm come to the future of both species? That worked. They stepped aside. The bridge door opened slowly, revealing Ta standing at the center console, surrounded by loyalists. His face twisted into something that might have once been disappointment, but now burned with bitter rage. Ah, he said. The brave human and his glowing mistake. Letha's eyes flared. Say that again. They didn't flinch. You've doomed us. That child is an abomination. A fusion of weakness and recklessness. It will not lead us. It will destroy us. You don't get to decide that, Derek said, stepping forward. You don't understand our history. They snapped. We are not meant to bond with outsiders. Your kind changes everything it touches. You breed chaos, mutation. Sounds like evolution to me, Derek replied coolly. The guards around Tieth tensed. Weapons were raised. But Letha stepped in front of Derek before he could draw. We didn't ask for this bond, she said calmly. We didn't plan this, child, but it exists now, and we won't let fear decide its future. This hand moved toward the console. Derek's instincts kicked in. He's trying to reroute us again. He pulled Letha down just as a guard fired. The plasma bolt missed by inches, searing the wall. Derek rolled, drew his weapon, and fired a clean, disabling shot into the attacker's leg. The room erupted into chaos. Guards fought guards. Human and Etherian personnel who had remained loyal swarmed the bridge. Letha's hands glowed as she used non-lethal bursts of bioluminescent energy to blind and disorient their attackers. Derek moved like a storm, focused, precise. It was over in less than a minute. Thea lay pinned beneath two guards, snarling. "You fools! You think love is enough to save a species?" Letha stood over him, calm but burning. "No, but fear has killed enough futures. We're done letting it rule us." She turned to Derek, breathing hard. "It's over. For now." He walked over and took her hand. "Then let's go back to planning our family and saving the galaxy one awkward political reception at a time." Letha chuckled through her exhaustion. "You humans really do make the worst diplomats." "Maybe," Derek said, "but we make excellent partners." And for the first time in Etherian history, someone dared to believe that love might actually be the beginning, not the end, of everything. The Star Sovereign hung silent in orbit, a ship that had just witnessed the birth of a political miracle, and nearly suffered a coup. Counselor Ethan and his rebels were in custody, the ship's systems restored, but peace was fragile. Fragile like a single match in a room full of fuel. One wrong word, one misunderstanding, and the spark would catch. Derek stood at the edge of the observation deck, watching the endless stars ahead. The quiet of space had always calmed him. Out there, everything seemed so distant, so manageable. Not like the chaos unfolding inside the ship and across two civilizations. A day ago, he was just a soldier with a mission. Now, he was a husband, a protector, and, if the biology held, a future father of the most controversial child in galactic history. Letha approached silently behind him. He felt her presence through the bond before she even touched him. "They've called for an emergency. Council," she said softly. "Back home, all 12 houses, they want answers." Derek turned to face her. Her glow had shifted, dimmer now, more focused. Her strength was still there, but it carried weight. The weight of being more than just a princess. Now she was a symbol. "They're afraid," she added. "Of you?" he asked. "No. Of what I represent. Of what we represent." She paused. "They've already started calling the child the hybrid. Capitalized. Like a prophecy. Better than the mistake," Derek muttered. Letha's eyes softened. "Is that what you think?" He shook his head. "No. I just know how politics works. They want something to blame. If they can't kill it, they'll name it." She stepped closer, pressing her hand to his chest. "Then let's give them a name they can't ignore." 3 days later, the massive crystalline chamber of the Etherian High Council opened its ancient gates, a place so old and revered that most Etherians had never stepped foot inside. Built into the surface of a floating arc station orbiting their homeworld, the chamber shimmered with blue-white light refracted through glass walls thicker than any tank armor Derek had ever seen. He was the first human to ever stand on that floor, and he felt it in every glance, every breath, every cautious step. The council sat in a circle of floating thrones, 12 nobles wrapped in traditional robes, their veils semi-translucent, by custom, not necessity now. Letha walked beside him, unveiled and radiant. Her steps echoed with centuries of change, and every move she made felt like history being rewritten. High Counselor Meridian, eldest of the 12, spoke first. Her voice rang like glass bells, calm but edged with challenge. "You claim to have conceived a child between human and Etherian species. Such a thing has been biologically impossible for 10,000 years. We ask you now, is this a hoax?" Letha raised her chin, her voice unwavering. "No, High Counselor, it is real. I feel him every moment. He glows within me." "And your human partner?" "I feel him too," Derek said, stepping forward. "Emotionally, physically, we are bonded. I didn't plan for it, but I won't walk away from it. And I sure as hell won't let anyone take it from us. The chamber whispered, soft growing murmurs of uncertainty. Strong words, another counselor said, leaning forward. But even if it's true, even if this child exists, what does it mean for us? Will our people be forced into unions with humans? Will our traditions be dissolved? Letha's glow flared, not with anger, but purpose. This isn't about forcing anything. This is about possibility. Our people have been fading, our genetics thinning. You've all seen the data. Our bloodlines are failing. And for the first time in 1,000 years, life has returned in full strength. In me. Show us, one of the younger counselors said quietly. Letha nodded. With careful grace, she stepped to the center of the chamber. As the room dimmed, she placed both hands on her abdomen. Her skin shimmered, then began to glow with radiant pulses. But it wasn't just her. A second glow, smaller, fainter, emerged within her, like a lantern being lit inside crystal. A perfect bioluminescent pattern pulsed in sync with hers, faint but unmistakable. The child. The silence that followed was heavier than gravity. No one could deny what they had seen. It's not just light, Letha said, her voice quieter now. It's harmony. The baby's pulse mirrors mine, yet it carries human elements. Faster healing, adaptive biology, new immune patterns. Not a weakness, a strength. A ripple of data blinked to life across the chamber, projected by hidden Etherian tech. Charts, genetic sequences, growth rates, side-by-side comparisons of a dying species and a new one blooming inside her. One of the oldest counselors leaned forward. You're saying the humans are not a threat to our future, but the answer to saving it? Exactly, Derek said. We don't want to replace your people. We want to build something with you. More silence. Then High Counselor Meridian finally spoke again. This changes everything. And then, Council Earth's voice echoed through the chamber, from a secured transmission room below. No, this is madness. Derek's hands clenched. He turned toward the sound. Each was being held under high security, yet the council allowed his voice to be heard. He was still technically one of them. You would rewrite our future based on a single child? He said. A single mistake of flesh and accident? Not a mistake, Letha replied, her glow flaring again. A beginning. You open the door to dilution, to chaos, to the end of Etherian identity. Derek stepped forward. You know what ends a civilization faster than change? Fear of it. You hide behind traditions that stopped serving you centuries ago. The truth is, you need us, and we need you, not because we're the same, but because we're different. And that difference just created life. They fell silent. The rest of the council did not. Slowly, one by one, they began to lower their veils. No words, just gestures of agreement. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the full circle of Etherian power stood revealed. It was the beginning of something new. Later in their chambers, Letha leaned against Derek, exhausted but glowing brighter than ever. Do you think they'll vote in our favor? She asked. He kissed her temple, eyes closed. They already did, the moment they saw our child. No council in the galaxy can argue with that kind of light. And far above them, through the station's crystal canopy, a new star flickered into view. Not real. Not a star, but a satellite relay. A message being sent to every Etherian world. A name, Luminaris, the first child of two worlds, and the spark that would change the galaxy forever. The name Luminaris spread faster than any virus ever had. Before the sun completed a single orbit on the Etherian homeworld, it was already trending across 10 star systems. In human space, it was celebrated. In Etherian circles, it was debated, dissected, whispered like prophecy, and shouted like warning. Across every screen, broadcast crystal and data stream, one message echoed. A child has been conceived between a human and an Etherian, and he is alive. But not everyone was celebrating. Commander Derek Steele felt it first, through the bond. A pulse of unease, like someone had opened a door to cold wind. Letha was standing at the balcony of their diplomatic quarters, her white hair glowing in the windless air, her skin flickering with the slow, steady rhythm of early pregnancy. She didn't move, but he knew she felt it too. "Someone's coming," Derek said, already strapping on his boots. "I know," she said without looking. "It's the High Council, a delegation, but they're not alone. Security? 13 guards, mixed allegiance, I can feel it. Half of them are uncertain." He paused. "Scared?" "No," she replied softly. "Angry." There was a knock on the door, not the polite, diplomatic kind. This one was hard, sharp, intentional. Derek opened it with calculated calm. On the other side stood Elder Vessa, one of the youngest High Council members. Her eyes, normally dim with formality, were bright now, and not with joy. "You're to come with us," she said, voice clipped. "To where?" Derek asked, stepping protectively between her and Letha. "The Genetics Tribunal," she said. "The Council has demanded an emergency review of the child's projected development. There are concerns about dominance." Derek's brow furrowed. "Dominance of what?" "Of human traits," Vessa said. "And what happens if your child favors one species too strongly?" Letha's bioluminescence dimmed. "You think he'll become a weapon?" "No," Vessa said. "Some of us think he already is." The tribunal chamber was colder than any room Derek had ever entered, not physically, but in energy. Everything about it was built for control. The walls were a dull shade of mirrored crystal, reflecting every motion, making Derek feel like he stood in a cage with 1,000 ghostly versions of himself. Letha stood in the center, a projection of her pregnancy and the child's genetic readings displayed above her. A three-dimensional map of DNA sequences and growth patterns rotated slowly in midair. "Perfect balance," said Dr. Aaron Vale, the head Etherian biologist. "Human and Etherian structures integrated with no signs of rejection, not even mutation. This child isn't just healthy, he's evolution." The council chamber rippled with unease. "So he's stronger than both species?" asked one noble, her tone doubtful. "Yes," Dr. Vile said. "Stronger, smarter, more adaptable, potentially longer lived." "What happens when he becomes an adult?" another asked. "Will he even belong to either of us?" Derek stepped forward. "He'll belong to himself," he said, voice steady. "That's how we do things on Earth. We don't own our children, we raise them." "You raise them to fight," Vessa snapped. "We raise them to survive," Derek countered. "Sometimes that means fighting. Sometimes it means forgiving. But always it means choosing. That's the difference between a soldier and a weapon." A heavy silence followed. Then Letha spoke. "You are afraid because you do not understand what we've created," she said. "You see strength and assume threat. You see difference and assume danger. But I have carried this child for weeks now. I have felt him. And what I feel is not hunger for power. What I feel is wonder." A projection flickered to life, her heartbeat and his. The child's glow pulsed between them, a perfect harmonic curve. "Wonder," she said again. "He is not becoming a monster. He is becoming a bridge." The tribunal recessed in silence. No verdict, no words, just hesitation. Back in their chambers, Letha sat on the edge of their bed, silent. Her glow had dimmed to near nothing. Derek sat beside her and reached for her hand. "They're afraid of something they've never seen before," he said. "That's all." Her voice was almost a whisper. "We're losing them. No, we're pushing them forward. They just don't realize it yet." He wrapped his arms around her. Through the bond he could feel her grief, her fatigue, and, underneath it all, her hope. That night, they walked in the bioluminescent gardens of the palace. Dozens of Etherian nobles had gathered, not for an official meeting but to watch, to see what the human and his glowing wife would do next. Letha ignored them. She stepped barefoot into the reflective waters of the sacred pool, and for the first time in recorded history, she unveiled herself voluntarily during pregnancy. A wave of light radiated from her, not blinding, not aggressive, just pure. Gasps echoed across the poolside. Derek watched from the shore, heart swelling. This wasn't just a political moment, it was personal. His wife, his love, was showing their child to the galaxy not as a threat, but as a promise. Then a voice called out from the crowd. "What will his name be?" Letha turned to Derek. The answer passed between them silently. "His name," she said, "is Luminaris. It means bearer of eternal light, because that is what he is." The crowd murmured again, but this time not in fear, in awe. The next morning, requests began pouring in. From humans, from Etherians, from mixed colonies, requests to begin trials for interspecies compatibility, requests for cultural exchanges, requests for hope. Not everyone approved. Protests broke out on fringe worlds. A few Etherian isolationist sects declared themselves in exile, but they were small, fading. The light was spreading faster than they could hide from. Back on the Star Sovereign, Derek looked out at the stars, hand resting on Letha's stomach. "Can you feel that?" she whispered. "What?" "He's listening," she said with a smile. "Even now," Derek smiled. "Then let's give him something worth hearing." And out in the stars, the galaxy held its breath, not in fear, but in anticipation of what was coming next. A child, a family, a future that belonged to both worlds. Together. The light had spread, but shadows were still moving. In the weeks following the announcement of Luminaris, thousands of messages flooded the galactic network. Some offered congratulations. Some offered threats, but most simply asked, "What comes next?" For Commander Derek Steele and Princess Letha, there was no time to rest. The baby inside her was growing rapidly, faster than any human or Etherian fetus ever recorded. Not in a dangerous way, the doctors assured them, but in a way that confirmed what many feared or hoped. The child was evolving beyond expectations. Still, peace was not guaranteed. An urgent diplomatic summit was announced, a full gathering of Etherian and human leadership, first of its kind. Leaders from across both civilizations would arrive at the central moon of Delvar Prime, a neutral world covered in mirrored ice, chosen because its reflective surface made it impossible to hide weapons or secrets. Letha, now visibly pregnant, would speak before them all. Derek knew she was ready, but he also knew something wasn't right. He could feel it, not just in his gut, but through the bond. Letha felt it too. A flicker of unease had settled over her light. Not fear, something colder, like someone was watching from the dark. 3. Days before the summit, a threat came through the secure channel. Terminate the pregnancy or the child dies with you. No signature, no symbol, just those words. But Derek had seen enough battlefield intel to know when something wasn't an empty threat. "We should cancel the summit," Admiral Richardson said in the briefing room. "Postpone until we confirm. Who's behind this?" Letha shook her head. "No, that's what they want. Delay, doubt, silence. You'll be a walking target," Richardson snapped, "and so will your unborn son." "I was a target the moment I took off the veil," she replied. "Now I'll be a beacon." Derek said nothing for a moment. Then he looked at her, his voice low. "Then we go together. Always." The summit hall on Delvar Prime was enormous, built into the moon itself, hollowed out and lined with reflective crystal. Delegates from dozens of systems stood in a giant, their languages translated in real time through nanotech woven into the walls. Letha entered, wearing a gown of Etherean silver and human cloth. Her veil was gone. Her glow pulsed strong and steady. Her steps were slow but certain, one hand resting on her rounded belly. Derek walked beside her, in full uniform, his sidearm holstered but charged. Gasps rippled across the room. Many were seeing her unveiled for the first time. Many were seeing the child, still unborn, but undeniably real. Letha took her place at the center. "When I was born," she began, her voice echoing softly, "my people believed we had seen the peak of our civilization, that we must preserve what we had and avoid the unknown. Then I met a man who had never even seen my face, and he chose to trust me anyway." Derek felt her reach out through the bond, not just to him, but to everyone listening. "You call our child a hybrid, but he is not a blend of weakness, he is a bridge of strength, of adaptation, of two species who were once too proud to see each other clearly." The room was silent. Then a voice called out from the human delegation. "And what happens when this bridge decides to walk over us all? What if your son becomes the ruler of both species? What if we raise a king without a kingdom?" Letha answered calmly. "Then we raise him to be a servant, not a ruler, a protector, not a tyrant." Before anyone could reply, the lights flickered. Derek's instincts kicked in. He moved in front of Letha as a deep hum shook the chamber. The lights cut out completely for 2 seconds. When they returned, 2 Etherean guards were down, stunned, and the crystal dome above the summit center had cracked. A breach. Security scrambled, forming a shield around the center ring. But it was too late. A small drone shaped like a metallic serpent had already entered. It hovered directly above Letha, charging a plasma needle. Derek drew his sidearm and fired in one motion. The drone exploded in midair, a sharp burst of light and metal fragments showering down. He threw himself over Letha instinctively, shielding her from the debris. Her glow dimmed, her breathing sharp, but she was alive. Chaos erupted. Delegates shouted. Alarms wailed, but Letha, still kneeling, stood again. Slowly, radiantly. She turned toward the human who had asked about her son's future. "He will not become a tyrant," she said through labored breath, "because he will know what it means to be hunted, to be hated, and to be protected." Derek stood with her. "And because he will have people, allies, who will teach him what it means to choose peace, not power." Admiral Richardson barked orders to secure the summit, but Letha raised her hand. "No more fear," she said. "No more shadows." She turned to the delegates. "We cannot stop those who fear the future, but we can decide not to join them. We can be brave." The delegates, shaken, listened in a new way now, and slowly, one by one, they began to stand. A human diplomat, then an Etherean noble, then a neutral planetary speaker, then another, until the chamber stood together, not as humans or Ethereans, but as witnesses to something new. Later, alone in their private suite, Letha rested on a reclining lounge, her skin dim with exhaustion but warm. Derek stood at the edge of the viewport, watching ships retreat from the moon, their engines glowing like tiny stars. "She's still strong," Letha said suddenly. Derek turned. "She?" Letha smiled faintly. "Our daughter." He blinked. "Wait, I felt her today," she said. Amid the panic, the surge of emotion, she responded, a new rhythm, a different pulse. Derek's breath caught. He knelt beside her. "2?" Letha nodded. "2 lives inside me now. One glowing like fire, one quiet as snow." Derek covered her hand with his. "You really don't believe in doing anything halfway, do you?" She laughed softly. "Neither do you, Commander." Their bond pulsed stronger than ever before. Through the chaos, through the danger, something greater had taken root. Not just a son, now a daughter too. Not just a marriage, a movement. And it was only just beginning. The twin suns of Etheria rose slowly over the capital spires, bathing the crystalline towers in golden fire. From the tallest balcony of the royal birthing wing, a soft glow shimmered behind silk curtains, steady and rhythmic, like a heartbeat felt across space. Inside, time had slowed to a hush. Commander Derek Steele sat beside Letha, her hand tight in his, her body wrapped in the soft silver biowebs used only during Etherian birth. Her glow was nearly blinding now, not wild but controlled, focused, a storm contained in grace. "You don't have to hold your breath every time I exhale," Letha said, panting gently, a trace of mischief in her strained voice. Derek smiled, through clenched nerves. "And miss the chance to pass out before you do? No way. Your humor is getting worse. I haven't slept in 2 days. You haven't blinked in 2 days." A soft sound interrupted them. A second heartbeat. Not hers, not his. Not Luminaris, who sat quietly with a nurse just beyond the barrier, his tiny silver hands glowing faintly with concentration. The second child had come early, yet perfectly timed. A girl. She was coming. High healer Solarian adjusted the crystal, light filters as Letha's glow intensified. The room dimmed automatically, shielding fragile equipment from the rising bioluminescence. "She's strong," Solarian murmured. "Stronger than even Luminaris, possibly stronger than her mother. Try telling her that," Derek muttered. Letha laughed softly and then gasped, her body arched. The light pulsed, and in a moment of silence that seemed to stretch between stars, a sound broke free, a cry, high, clear, beautiful. The room was filled with light, not artificial, not programmed. Living light. And there she was. The second miracle. A girl with Derek's eyes and Letha's silver skin, her bioluminescence already rippling through the room in soft waves of pink and violet. Letha sobbed and laughed at the same time as they placed the newborn in her arms. Derek knelt beside them, barely able to speak. He reached out, his hand trembling, and the baby's tiny fingers closed around his thumb with impossible strength. "What do we call her?" he asked, voice raw with wonder. Letha smiled through her tears. "Solari." Derek blinked. "Latin?" She nodded. "From your earth, it means of the sun." He nodded, brushing a kiss against both their foreheads. "Solari James Steele," he whispered. "The light we didn't expect, but were always meant to find." The following month passed in mind, a blur of light, diplomacy, and new beginnings. Human and Etherian scientists released a joint genetic report that stunned the galaxy. Not only were hybrid children viable, they were more stable than most pure-blood Etherians. Biologically, emotionally, neurologically, the human adaptability gene, paired with Etherian light-reactive cells, had created something stronger than either species alone could have imagined. What had once been feared as a contamination was now understood as a cure. And at the center of it all was one family. Not rulers, not gods, just people. Derek and Letha had returned to Etheria's capital to live quietly, for now. Their private residence overlooked the Sapphire Sea, and their garden bloomed with earth, roses and Etherian star blossoms alike. It had become a small paradise, and a symbol. One evening, Derek sat on the balcony with Luminaris asleep on his chest, and baby Solari resting peacefully in Letha's arms. The sky above sparkled with stars and the subtle shimmer of nearby traffic lanes, ships traveling between worlds that had once barely spoken. "You know," Derek murmured, "I spent most of my life following orders, getting medals, winning wars. And now?" Letha asked, rocking Solari gently. "Now I measure success by naps," he said, "and baby burps." Letha laughed, her glow soft and steady. "You're not the man you were when I met you. You weren't exactly easy to read behind the mask." "You read me anyway," she said, "even when others ran." He looked at her, and his smile faded into something softer. I didn't see the light right away. I just refused to run from it. Maybe that's what makes humans special, Letha said. You don't just adapt, you stay even when things get hard. They sat in silence a while longer. Then Luminaris stirred and mumbled something half-formed, still learning words. Bright. Home. Derek looked down, stunned. Did he just... He did, Letha confirmed, smiling. Bright home, Derek whispered. Yeah, that's what this is. A light glowed softly from Luminaris's small chest, and beside him, baby Solari responded, her glow syncing with his. Derek looked at Letha, overwhelmed. You think more humans and Etherians will try this, he asked. I know they will, she said. They already are, because we showed them it's possible. We didn't just make peace, he said, holding both children closer. We made a family. No, Letha whispered, her voice full of quiet awe. We made a future. Above them in the sky, 2 new constellations had been registered by the interstellar community. They weren't named after stars. They were named after children, Luminaris, Solari. Symbols of unity. Proof that the galaxy could change. And deep in that quiet corner of space, under the stars of 2 worlds, a human and an alien lay side by side. 2 lights, once separated by fear and distance, now burning together, not as legend but as love, as family, as the beginning of everything new, the end.